Good morning and thank you for spending part of your Sunday morning with us here at KDKA. If Pittsburgh truly is on the move and city government and the local construction industry want it to be part of that, they also want to be certain that minorities and women are part of the workforce. KDKA's Lisa Washington has more on this effort.
Mayor Bill Peduto says these executive orders come as the city is on the cusp of a boom, and he wants to make sure that minority and female workers are part of the city-managed projects. With city leaders, construction managers, and union representatives surrounding him, Pittsburgh's Mayor Bill Peduto says the executive orders are for project labor agreements and workforce development. Going forward, the city wants to make sure that minority workers are at least 12% of the workforce on city-managed construction projects. Things like retrofitting the city-county building to make it energy efficient.
We're going to need a heck of a lot more workers. And we're either going to find them in places like Homewood, Hazelwood, and the Hill, or we're going to find them in Ohio, West Virginia, and Maryland. And I'd prefer trying to be able to find people from this city and this region to be able to fill those jobs.
The orders apply to projects of $500,000 or more. A construction industry task force is charged with creating a pipeline for trained local workers to fill the positions.
People that look like me, have dreams like me, and aspirations like me only want a fair shake.
Already, the task force has seed money of $350,000 for outreach and recruitment.
This will help to fund the pipeline for Pittsburgh residents to become union workers.
With the capital project's budget of more than $1 billion, the mayor says the city will need a lot more workers he'd like to see who are from Pittsburgh. Lisa Washington, KDKA TV News.
One of the people we interviewed for the story is here with us this morning. Please welcome DeWitt Walton to the Sunday Business Page. Wears several hats around town. Mr. Walton, a member of the Allegheny County Council, of course, from the 10th District. That includes the Hill. He also is an assistant to the International President of the United Steelworkers. And DeWitt also serves as Vice President and Program Director of the Pittsburgh A. Philip Randolph Institute. Welcome to the program. Glad you're here.
Thank you, Rick. I'm pleased to be here.
I guess my first question is, how much of an issue is it that minorities and women are not part of these construction crews?
I want to define this issue at the outset in terms of levels of participation. In real stark terms, there's a distinct difference in the levels of participation on union-driven projects as opposed to non-union projects. The numbers of minority workers on union projects are significantly higher than on non-union projects, and there's a myriad of reasons why that is the case.
So what we're looking at in this particular case, union jobs, is that what you're suggesting? Or are you saying across the board it needs to be a level field?
It needs to be a level field, but clearly there is a clear path to success as unionized workers as opposed to non-union workers. In the state of Pennsylvania, state certified apprentice programs are overwhelmingly part of union apprenticeship programs. There's a small number of individuals who, of contractors, that have state certified apprenticeship programs. In almost every case, they're unionized shops. But nonetheless, this document that the mayor introduced on Tuesday will create a broader pathway for folks, again, that look like me, that have dreams like me, and aspirations like me.
How does it do it? How does it go about doing that?
Well, part of that document says that they have to come from certified apprenticeship programs. And by doing that, as I just outlined, those are overwhelmingly driven by union shops. Mm-hmm. It doesn't, the executive order doesn't mandate that you have to be a signatory, but nonetheless, if you don't have a signatory agreement with the union, then that limits your ability to garner their contract. Because again, earlier, there are a small group of contractors that have state certified apprenticeship programs. Again, and most of those are unionized. So if you have an apprenticeship program, that guarantees several things. That there's a pathway to certification and journeyman status. Because again, once you become a journeyman, in the union world, those skills are transferable and portable and permanent. You know, and that's what you want to have. That's what you need to have, are skills that are permanent, that are certifiable and portable.
The number that the mayor puts in place, a couple of stipulations, they have to be city projects that have to be in excess of $500,000. Are there many projects that are smaller than that these days? I mean, it seems to me that that's going to pretty much encompass most everything of any sort of significant project.
The overwhelming majority of projects that are going to be done are going to exceed $500,000, particularly where there are public funds expended. And that's the other criteria, that they have to be publicly funded. There has to be public funds included into that. And then add the $500,000 to it, then that, the overwhelming majority of projects will be $500,000 or above.
The mayor talked about, you know, bringing people from Ohio, from West Virginia, from Maryland, bordering states in each of those cases. How much of an issue is that? I mean, it's not a matter of not having the skilled labor here, correct? That is already in place.
Right now, with all of the construction that's going on, there are few, if any, workers in the union construction trades that are on what's called the bench, on the out of work list.
So people are finding work if they want it.
If folks that want to work can find work. Now the question therefore becomes that if you have this work available and you can't fill the manpower requirements, an employer has the responsibility to get work done on time and under budget. If that means that he brings folks in from outside, then they have to do that. But if we do what we're supposed to do, there will be much less of a need to do that, because there will be people available to put in that pipeline so that we can get that work done on time and on budget.
To make those things happen. DeWitt, thank you very much for the explanation. We appreciate your expertise on the matter and appreciate you letting us know what's going on out there.
Thank you.
Very much appreciate it.
it.
You bet. And the Sunday Business Page continues. Growing Pennsylvania's brand new medical marijuana research program. Are there any growing pains out there? We will find out exactly what the differing views are on who should be permitted to grow and dispense medical cannabis to its clients. An attorney, Peter Murphy from Eckert Siemens, is going to join us. Keep it right here on the Sunday Business Page.
The Sunday Business Page.